Hi, I'm Mark Beebe. It's good to be with you today. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. Struggle with codependency. Just thanks for being a part of your own recovery and for being a part of recovery at Cokesbury. I want to talk to you tonight about willingness, what willingness is all about. Willingness has to do with where is my disposition relative to whether or not I'm going to choose continuing a bondage of anything that I'm in, that I find myself in, or freedom. Freedom requires willingness, and really in a different way, bondage requires the willingness to continue to do exactly what I'm doing. There's a definition in the big book of AA in regard to insanity. And the definition is that insanity has to do with doing the same thing, making the same decision over and over and over and over and over again, taking the same action over and over and over again, and expecting that the result or the outcome is going to be different. Willingness has to do with, do I actually want for there to be a freedom result, or am I content with there being a bondage result? So the bondage result doesn't look like the bondage result because it looks to me in my unwillingness like this is exactly what I ought to be doing. And it goes like this: I want what I want when I want it. You can take that 1,000 different ways. You can take that in the direction of drugs and alcohol. You can take that absolutely in the direction of relationships. You can take it in the direction of expectations. You can take it a million different ways. I want what I want when I want it. And the willingness for freedom, any kind of change in our lives that produces freedom, the willingness for freedom is going to directly challenge that one particular statement that I want what I want when I want it. And so what does willingness look like? Well, here are some questions that I think have to be answered to kind of determine how willing am I really to experience freedom. Number one, will I go to any lengths to be sober, to experience freedom, to be free? Will I go to any lengths? Or if someone says to me, listen, I need you to go do this amount of therapy, I need you to go to this amount of treatment, I need you to go to this treatment location, I need you to go to these meetings, I need you to do these 5 things. Are you already beginning to try to modify that plan that would be any lengths? If someone tells you, are you willing to do anything to do this? I really am. Okay, well, here's what you got to do. You got to go to Utah, because the place where you really got to get better is in Utah, hypothetically, and Utah is it. Are you willing to go to Utah? Well, I mean, man, I live in Tennessee. Isn't there some other place other than Utah that I can go? But wait a minute, you said you were willing to go to any lengths to get sober or to be free. You said you would do anything. But see, really, in the heart, anything isn't anything. It's like when we hear ourselves talk like that and we go, someone goes, are you really willing to go through this to get some freedom? You really willing to go through some serious change? You go, man, I really am. That is your disease talking. That is your compulsion talking, trying to get me, the other person talking to you, off your back, isn't it? You'll say, hey man, look, I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. I'll do whatever I got to do. I'm sick of living this way. That is really your head talking out of your disease. What will be different is if it came from your heart, and you wrestled with that question, are you willing to go to any lengths to experience freedom? You wrestled with that here in your heart, and from your heart, it went to your head, and you started to challenge that disease of yours, that disease of ours, and then it went from your head, finally to your mouth. Because I think more often than not, if we took that direction, starting with the heart, going to the head, going to the mouth, we'd have a lot more people becoming a lot more honest about that question. Are you willing to do anything to get free? And the honest answer then, I think in a lot of cases is going to be, no, not yet. I'm not done experimenting. I'm not done trying to do it my own way. I'm not done being prideful. I'm not done being stubborn. I'm not done basically feeding my disease. All those kinds of things feed my disease. I'm not done feeding the monster. I do not believe today that the monster in my life, whatever it is, relationship, whatever, is actually capable of taking me out. And see, that's the lie. The lie is, as long as I believe that I'm in control, I keep getting sicker. The longer that I believe that I'm in control, I keep extending and deepening the bondage. So am I willing to go to any lengths to be sober or to be free? I know that you're not willing when you won't call a sponsor. And you're going to go, well, I mean, I took the number that you gave me, but I mean, I couldn't get a hold of them. I left them a message. I call your sponsor. I call the person that I talked to you about, and they go, nope, nobody ever called me. Well, you know, I must have the wrong number. Not likely. Well, I called him and I couldn't get an answer. Did you call him back? No. And why is that? Well, that's because you took one shot to do something you didn't want to do, and when that was over, well, that was the last time you really wanted to do it. Because, you know, any kind of an impediment at all, any kind of a challenge at all, don't want to do it because it really wasn't what I want to do in the first place. Because I'm not really willing to go to any lengths to experience the change of freedom. You're not willing, you know you're not willing when you're not willing to take suggestions from anyone for or about anything. You won't take suggestions from anyone for or about anything. What you say to me or whoever you're talking to is this. You go, well, you know what? I'll think about it. That's a no. You'll say, I'll take it under consideration. That's probably a no. You say, I'm going to do a lot of research about it. That's probably a no. You won't take suggestions from anyone or anything. You're in bondage. You'd like to go to a meeting, whether it's one of our open share groups here, or it's a meeting at AA or NA or Al-Anon or SA or an adult child of alcoholics meeting. It's a meeting like that, or it's a meeting here. You'd like to go to a meeting, but you know what? Doggone it, there's just no time. There's just no time for meetings. I mean, like, I'm so busy, there's no time. Or, you know what? I went to a meeting, like you said. I went to a meeting, and honestly, those people are nothing like me, or it really wasn't that good, or I didn't like the meeting, the way that the person was leading the meeting. It just didn't click for me. You want to know what the very best meeting is that you could ever go to? I'll tell you the very best meeting you could ever go to. You ready? This is what it is. It would be the meeting that you actually were at. The very best meeting that you can go to, the very best meeting that you'll ever go to in your life is the meeting that you were at. And if you keep that perspective every time you go to a meeting, it's going to change your viewpoint of meetings. And maybe the last thing is you're going to say, the last criterion or whatever, good indicator of your willingness or my willingness for change and for freedom is this. You say, you know, like, I'm not really a fellowship person. I mean, I'm not really a believer in the fact that I've got to be a part of a fellowship to be able to deal with this disease. I believe that I ought to be able to lick this disease by myself. Back to step one. I believe I should be fully in charge, whether I am or not. I should be fully in charge of what is happening to me, and I ought to be able to lick this on my own. I'm not really a fellowship person. Any of those statements are a clear 100% indicator of a lack of willingness on our parts for there to be change and freedom. As long as I'm saying any of those kinds of things, I'm simply not ready for freedom. And I am making a deliberate choice for the continuance of bondage. I'm making a deliberate choice for the continuance of bondage. At that point, I am not a victim, I am a chooser. I am not a victim, I'm a chooser. I am choosing to continue a relationship that's unhealthy for me. I'm choosing to continue an addiction to drugs or alcohol. I'm choosing to continue a bad place in my life emotionally. I'm choosing a behavior that is destroying me. I'm making a deliberate decision to stay in bondage. That's what I'm doing. Change has several different features to it, almost like a timeline that I want to go through with you. So the first phase, phase one of the opportunity for change is this. I simply, in phase one, am not willing to accept the need for change. And the only thing I'm going to do is what I was talking about just a second ago, which is, in this first phase of change, I am only willing to defend my independence. I am only willing to defend my independence. And as a part of my defending my independence, how am I going to function? Well, number one, I'm going to be dishonest with myself and others about what is going on in my life. I'm going to minimize what is going on in my life. I'm going to minimize the amount of bondage that I'm in. I'm going to minimize the amount of distress that I'm in. I'm going to minimize the amount of disease that I'm in. And I'm going to tell people I'm fine, and would you please get out of my face, and I'm going to be okay. So I'm going to be dishonest. Number two, I'm going to be reluctant. I'm going to be completely reluctant to listen to anything anybody else has to say relative to my life, because it is my life and I get to be in charge. Third thing I'm going to do in this first phase of unwillingness altogether is I'm going to be completely rebellious. Somebody's going to tell me, are you going to meet me at this meeting? I'm not going to show up. I'm going to sort of have this halfway conversation with the sponsor, and then you know what? I'm not going to really talk to him again. And I'm going to call up that person. I'm going to go, is Jack calling you? Are you hearing from Jack? Well, I heard from him 2 days ago, but I haven't heard from him since then. Let me just tell you, the sponsor relationship is very clear. It's very distinct. There's only one way to do it, and this is how it is. When you decide you're going to be in a sponsor relationship, the discipline for calling that sponsor is yours, not theirs. The discipline for you establishing a relationship is yours, not theirs. The discipline for you deciding that you are going to listen to what they have to say is yours, not theirs. Rebelliousness comes down to blowing off all those kinds of components of recovery that we know in thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives has been highly effective. But somehow, in this first phase, we convince ourselves that, you know what, despite all those hundreds of thousands of lives that this program has had an effect on, you know what? I am terminally unique, and I am completely different from anybody else. And I am special and different, and what is going on in this program isn't really for me, and I still believe fully that I can do it exactly the right way by myself. I am resigned in this first phase to the belief that change isn't possible. And I think that part of that resignation is when we get down inside of ourselves is we don't believe that we're worth it. We don't believe that we're worth sobriety. We don't believe that we're worth freedom. We don't believe that there's enough value in our lives to be able to warrant that kind of opportunity for freedom. Maybe there's going to be a rationalization that goes on, and the rationalization has to do with me saying, well, you know, as soon as I get through college, well, then I'll deal with this. As soon as I get this new job, I'll deal with this. As soon as I move to this new city, I'll deal with this. As soon as I, and as soon as I, and as soon as I, and as soon as this, and as soon as that, and as soon as that. Translation, I want to be in bondage because I am making every decision possible to walk away from the help that is being offered to me. It's this phase here is basically an outright rejection of the opportunity for change and transformation. In the second phase of the process of change, I might see the possibility of change, but I'm really not sure how to get there. Because, of course, along the way, the people that have been trying to bring recovery to me, what have I done? Like I've blown them off. Like I've only been listening to me. So people have been trying to tell me about the opportunity for transformation or freedom in my life. But see, I've been blowing them off. I've been putting them away. And so now, in this second phase, maybe I'm starting to hear about this possibility of freedom, this possibility of healthy change. But of course, I have no idea how to get there. And the thing about it is I'm not that motivated to get there, and I'm still not that motivated to listen because I'm still actually very much in love with homeostasis. And homeostasis is things staying the way they are. Things staying the way they are. I'm in an abusive relationship. 4 or 5 people tell me, they're willing to help me. 4 or 5 people in my life tell me that they love me and they will help me find a way out of this. 4 or 5 people tell me it's just not necessary for me to suffer in this relationship the way that I am. But what I know is I know about the abuse. What I'm almost in a unhealthy way, what I'm almost content with is the consistency of the abuse. What will be inconsistent is the risk that I would have to take to be able to change that situation and change the bondage to freedom. So I see the possibility of change, but I'm really still very much in love with the way things are. Third phase. I actually now, after a period of exploration and periods of fits and starts and conversations and looking at things in my life getting worse, now I'm actually committed to at least the idea or the concept of change. But I'm still very unsure about what to do. I'm still not really in a position, I'm not really in a desire, don't have a desire to really follow the recovery plan that maybe somebody else is trying to give to me. I'm aware of it. I'm interested. I believe that maybe I really could have the opportunity for freedom. Maybe I really could go through a healthy change. But you know what? I really don't know what to do. And again, that's because I'm still not really sure that given just a little bit of help, maybe I could get back in charge of this. Maybe I could get back on top of this, and preferentially, maybe I could heal this by myself. And so in this phase, what's critical is, am I willing to dismantle right here? Am I willing to dismantle my pride? Am I willing to dismantle my ego? And am I willing, because that's a part of this third phase, am I willing to really examine my fear? Like my mom used to say when I thought something catastrophic was about to happen in my life, she would sit me down and she would go, so let's talk about this, Mark. What is the very worst thing that could happen to you? If you do this thing you're the most scared of, what is the very worst thing that could happen to you? What is the worst thing that could happen to you? And that might be a good question for this particular phase. So I'm committed to change. I'm exploring it, but I'm really not sure what to do. The fourth phase, I begin to take action. And in the understanding of recovery, I'm taking action that is being led by somebody else. I do believe and do understand what step 2 is talking about. Step 2 says, look, my life is insane. My life is a train wreck, and only God, not Mark Beebe, only God, not Jack Jones, only God is going to be able to restore me to sanity. Only God, not me being in control, only God is going to be able to restore me to sanity. So I am moving in this phase toward change, but nothing is really stable yet. Things are kind of up and down, not sure how it's going to work, but I am taking action. I am scared. I am unsure. And I am kind of moving back and forth between the attraction to what was and the attraction to the possibility of what could be. And now the plan, and in our case, we're talking about the recovery plan, those pieces of a recovery plan that I was talking about earlier. Have I developed a relationship with the sponsor? Am I going to meetings? Am I doing work with the literature on a daily basis? Am I beginning to work step 1? What am I really willing to do? Is the plan is now defining the action. That will be the fifth phase of change. So the plan is now what I am following. I'm not following my instincts. I'm not following my ego. I'm not following my pride. I'm not following my fear. I'm following a plan of recovery with those elements that we talked about earlier, the basics of recovery that we talk in this room about all the time. The plan is now defining the action that I am taking with my energy, and I am putting now my energy into an action plan that solely is geared toward freedom. And I am seeing bondage over here as where I was and what I was held by. And now I am looking forward in this plan to living within the freedom that I am now beginning to see at least some glimpses of. And so the final phase of change is this. It's called recurrence. And in recurrence, what happens is, in my life, things are going along and I get some recovery time, I get some sober time. I'm now experiencing some of the fruits of freedom, and things are going well in my life. And I'm encouraged about the relationships that I have in my life. I'm encouraged about my use of drugs or alcohol or whatever my compulsion is. I'm encouraged about the way things are heading for me. I have a clear-headedness about me now. I'm following that plan. And guess what happens? Like life happens. And what happens in life is I'm going to have a recurrence of some of the experiences, some of the emotions, some of the triggers, some of the people in my life who brought me into bondage in the first place. And my disease is going to want to make a comeback. And my disease is going to want to have a repeat performance. And my disease is going to be like kind of someone in my life that I broke up with, that I should have broken up with a long time before that, who is toxic for me, who's not healthy for me. But you know what? They come back into town, and man, I see them out somewhere, and wow, they look good, and I'm just really not sure how I feel about that. That's what this disease has a capacity to do. And the ability for us to manage recurrence is going to be connected to the intensity with which we are following the plan. And the amount of result from the plan of action that brings me to freedom, the amount of result that I have put into my bank, my emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical bank, that's going to keep me in a place of sobriety and freedom. So I'm going to experience in recurrence a repeat of symptoms that brought me to bondage in my life in the first place. But now, as a result of me following an action plan of recovery, now I'm going to know how to manage life on life's terms using those recovery tools that I've been working on. I'm going to know that I got to go to more meetings. I'm going to know that I got to spend more time with my sponsor. I'm going to know that I got to work that step that I haven't been willing to work. I've got to know that I'm willing to read the literature and take care of my heart every day and do the best work with my heart that I possibly can. That's what it's going to mean when the repeat of symptoms don't derail me. The recurrence of symptoms and people, places, things, whatever, doesn't derail me. But I know how to manage life on life's terms. That is a real gift of recovery. Jesus says it like this. It says, Jesus said to her, I'm the resurrection and the life. Translation, not your pride, not your ego, not your way, not your avoidance, not your comfort zone, not someone that's not healthy for you. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me is going to live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. What we're talking about in a move toward freedom over bondage, in a move toward a willingness for freedom, a willingness for recovery, a willingness for sobriety. What we're talking about, all of that is an absolute experience of resurrection. And Jesus' last statement speaks it all to us tonight. It's the ultimate gauge of willingness. And his question is, do you believe this? Do you believe that resurrection can be for you? Do you believe that when Jesus rose from the dead, he did it for you? Do you believe that in the resurrection, Jesus is taking you with him? Do you believe that he can take you with him to a resurrection life right now? Or are you going to settle for only having a willingness to continue the bondage that you're currently in? That's a lot to think about. In Jesus' sweet name, thanks so much. Amen.